So as you may have seen over the weekend, the IDF carried out a strike that was aimed at targeting predominantly Mohammed Deif, who is a terror mastermind in Gaza. And I want to share with you some information about the strike and what was achieved, and information on Deif and whether or not they have neutralized him. Mohammed Deif, this is all courtesy, by the way, of Stand With Us UK's briefing. So he was one of the masterminds of October the 7th. And on Saturday, the 13th of July, the IDF carried out a targeted airstrike in Gaza. The main target is claimed to be Mohammed Deif, and much has been reported regarding the operation, and so we need to answer some important questions. In a nutshell, the IDF conducted a targeted airstrike in Gaza on July 13th, aiming to eliminate Mohammed Deif. And he is, as I said, the mastermind of October 7th massacre, and he's Hamas' most senior operational figure in the past 30 years. Deif is the head of the military wing of Hamas and a key figure in numerous terror attacks, including the Jaffa Street bombings, the Park Hotel massacre, and the kidnapping of Gilad Shalit. Deif, known for his elusive nature and survival from multiple assassination attempts, is responsible for the deaths of thousands of Israelis and has been hunted by the IDF for over 30 years. The recent strike, based on precise intelligence, targeted Deif and his right-hand man in a Hamas compound outside designated humanitarian zones. There's growing optimism that the operation successfully eliminated Deif. Firstly, who is he and why is he such an important target? Born as Mohammed Diab Ibrahim al-Masri, he later became known as El Deif, or the Guest, due to his habit of staying in different houses every night for decades to avoid being tracked and killed by terrorists. Mohammed Deif is the commander of the Al-Qassam Brigades, Hamas military wing, and is considered number 2 to Yahya Sinwar himself. He's responsible for the planning and execution of some of the most awful terror attacks against Israelis. He survived multiple assassination attempts by Israel over the past 30 years, being severely injured over time from them. He has spent much of the past 20 years underground and has rarely been seen whilst planning terror attacks against Israelis. Since the start of the current war, images have surfaced showing that he is alive and active in Hamas. Deif has become a legendary figure among Gazans. He has a number of nicknames, including the Phantom and the Shadow, as he has remained hidden since his 20s. He's been at the top of Israel's most wanted list, and the US and EU both have him on terror blacklists. He's regarded as an expert planner of terror attacks, not needing maps and visuals to plan his awful schemes, and also as one of the founding generation of suicide bombers, which transformed Hamas into a lethal terror group. Deif's operational level and influence in Hamas is comparable to the infamous figures Qassem Soleimani of the IRGC from Iran and Imad Mughniya of Hezbollah, who held parallel roles in their terror groups. In 1989, at the age of 24, Deif was arrested and jailed for terror activity during the First Intifada. Following his release from prison, he rose ranks in Hamas quickly due to his desire to take part in murderous terror activity. Deif planned the abduction and murder of IDF soldier Nachshon Washman, and in 1996 succeeded Yahya Ayash, the engineer, who was a commander of Hamas's military until the IDF assassinated him. Ayash is considered the creator of the suicide bomb belt, and was a mentor for Deif, teaching him how to make bombs. Mohammed Deif was responsible for the planning of a number of horrific terror attacks against Israelis. The Jaffa Street bombings were 25th of February and 3rd of March 96, a little over a week apart. 2 buses in Jerusalem were blown up by Hamas suicide bombers, and they murdered a combined 45 people. Then the Dizengoff Center suicide bombing, 4th of March 1996. On the eve of the Jewish festival of Purim, a suicide bomber detonated his explosives in the Dizengoff Center, the heart of Tel Aviv. 13 Israelis were murdered, 130 were injured. The Park Hotel massacre, 27th of March 2002, during a communal Seder night, I remember this actually, on Passover at the hotel, a Hamas terrorist broke in and detonated his suicide belt. 30 people were killed and 140 were injured. Following the further escapes from arrests and assassination attempts, Deif took over as chief of the Al-Qassam Brigades in 2002. Since then, he's been responsible for planning all of the most significant terror attacks against Israelis. He planned the kidnapping of Gilad Shalit in 2006 and has been one of the most important figures in Hamas' relationship with the Islamic leadership of Iran. Prior to Saturday's operation, there have been 6 assassination attempts against Deif since the early 90s. Deif has avoided death, but has been seriously injured over the years, including losing an eye. At 11 a.m. on Saturday the 13th of July, the IDF targeted Deif and his right-hand man, Rafa Salama, who serve as the Khan Yunis Brigade commander. The strike took place in the Al-Mawasi refugee area in Khan Yunis. The compound targeted is a fenced-off area used by Hamas to conduct terror activities. In a joint operation by the IDF and the Shin Bet, the Air Force and Southern Command, based on precise intelligence from the Military Intelligence Directorate and the Shin Bet, they attacked the area where 2 senior Hamas terrorists and other militants were hiding among civilians. The IDF stated regarding the attack area is an open, wooded space with several buildings and sheds. The targeting of Deif is the latest in a series of operations by the IDF to eliminate key Hamas figures during this war. Notable names that have been targeted by the IDF include Saleh al-Aruri, Hamas military commander of West Bank operations, who was assassinated in a precise attack in Lebanon back in January. The IDF also targeted and eliminated Marwan Issa in March. Issa was a Hamas number 3 in Gaza, head of military operations, and at the time, Deif's right-hand man. According to the IDF, this compound area is not part of the designated humanitarian area that they have mapped out for civilians. It is well known to be a Hamas operations centre cynically located close to civilians in order to deter any IDF attacks. Hamas has spent much of the war operating within hospitals such as Al-Shifa and in international relief areas such as UNRWA bases in the heart of refugee camps such as Al-Nusrat. This does not exempt them from being targeted by the IDF according to international law. The IDF has stated that the compound was not within a humanitarian zone, was well known to be a Hamas base and therefore a legitimate target. The IDF received strong and reliable intelligence overnight that Deif was going to meet Salama in that compound. Once received, they planned the strike and waited for the confirmation that Deif was present in the compound. The IDF has been very successful so far in eliminating Hamas tunnels throughout the war. This is forcing Hamas above ground when moving from various points and therefore makes them far more vulnerable as targets. Since the strike, there has been much caution about Deif's fate due to his surviving of assassination attempts. However, there's growing optimism amongst the IDF that the operation was a success and that Deif has been eliminated. Firstly, the meeting took place in a building above ground, which highly increases the likelihood of successful elimination. Secondly, Rafa Salama, who was meeting Deif and is his right-hand man, has been confirmed to have been killed by the strike. Thirdly, there is currently no contact with any hostage negotiations, as Deif is in charge of their captivity. So, it does look like that this was a success. It looks like Deif got his just end, as they say. But we can only continue to wish the IDF strength and success in all that they're doing to bring peace and security to not just Israel and the Jewish people, but frankly the whole region. And even the Arabs who are ruled by these monsters. Although, of course, the other great tragedy is that it seems so many of them actually consent or are even complicit in the genocidal agenda of Hamas. And that also needs to give us great pause for thought.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.